This is the outer peristyle garden. There are lots of statues. Again, when you walk around afterwards, right at the far end, under the date palms, there's statues of two nude young men in bronze. Again, these are copies, but they are the first generation copies, so they are very good copies. And you look at their eyes, they have the white of the eyes, it's either marble or stone, and some of the statues I've seen even have eyelashes of copper wire. It's absolutely amazing. But anyway, you can see again, everything is so exact, also perfectly formed on one side or the other. And the pool is the same size as the one in the Villa dei Papiri in Herculaneum, except that one is 6 feet deep and this is only 18 inches. Because if it was deeper than 18 inches, we'd have to have Los Angeles County lifeguard here and it would spoil the atmosphere. The walls here are the second style of Pompeii wall paintings, and the trompe-l'oeil that tricks the eye, it gives you perspective. The walls are absolutely flat, but it looks as if the pillars stand away from it. And if you look at either end, the doorways there, those are absolutely flat walls, and you think that it has pillars in front and the pediment, but that is the second style of Pompeii. And that's a still life painting right from the Villa dei Papiri of the little temple and the fish farm and the deer. And then over here, this long colonnade, which is just so stunning. The Romans, they like to have alternate things or exact things. So here you can see there's a mosaic in this square, nothing there, but the mosaic there sort of alternates all the way down. The squares where there's nothing, if you look up at the wall, there's a grid pattern in the wall. And when the sun shines from there, it portrays on the floor, it has another pattern from the sun. So that's what they do. These here, this is the famous Greek key pattern. You see it in design and so on, but this is it. And it originally started from this river in southwestern Turkey, the Menendez River, which is very much curves back on itself all the time. It's mentioned in Homer's Iliad. So it's been there forever, and it's probably the curves are deeper now, but that was that. And again here shows the Roman love of nature. Look at the grasshopper and the bird and the flowers are just very, very important. And that face at the top there was called an oscilli, which means movement, and it will be tied on a string and just left to move in the wind like a scarecrow to chase the birds away. So that was that. And this originally, all of these frescoes were done, when they were originally painted, it was painted as a fresco in wet cement. This is 2,000 years ago. This copy here, they're repairing, restoring some there. These copies here were done with acrylic by a young man, Garth Benton, when they opened the villa. So they're restoring some now because they've been on the go for quite a while. This is the wonderful herb garden, but you need to take a garden tour to do that as well. But I just wanted to tell you the story, the map that I pointed out in the other little room there, and Pliny the Elder, where he lived at Misenum. On the day that the volcano started to erupt, he had friends further around the bay, and they had noticed that there was a lot of ash and little stones called lapilli were flying around, and they didn't know what had happened. And so they sent a message to Pliny, who was almost a geographer. He was so interested in all natural phenomena, and he wrote stories about, well, he wrote the treatise on farming, very, very wonderful man. And they sent, we don't know what's happening, come and save us. So he, who was the admiral of the fleet, said, right, I take a ship, I sail across the bay, and I'll stop and pick up people on the way. So his nephew, Pliny the Younger, who lived with him, said, no, I'm not going to come, I've got something else to do. So off Pliny the Elder went in his ship with his crew, and he got to his friends down in Stabii, which was just beyond Pompeii, and nothing really was happening. So they went ashore, they had dinner, they went to bed, and during the night things really began to happen, and things much heavier came. All these stones and the ashes, and they tried to escape, but they couldn't. They all died. Pliny himself died on the beach at Stabii, and he was quite an elderly man. We assumed he had a heart attack, but that was that. But meantime, Pliny the Younger, his nephew, had been at home in Mycenium, 30 miles away from the volcano, so he was perfectly safe, and he watched the whole eruption that went over into the next day. And he said, then years later, Tacitus, who was a famous Roman historian, contacted him. Now I'm just going to go back a minute. This tree here is an Italian stone pine. Mr. Getty, when this was being built, he selected a 25-year-old Italian stone pine tree that was growing around the Bay of Naples. He had it dug up and brought here and planted here. So this was planted here more than 50 years ago, so it's now almost 100 years old. And I think the reason that he wanted it here was the story, because Pliny the Younger, watching the whole eruption, years later, Tacitus, who is a famous Roman historian, and you can Google Pliny's letter to Tacitus, Tacitus contacted him and he said, you watched the whole eruption, please will you write your description of it? So Pliny did, and sent this to Tacitus. And he said that he watched all of this happening, and he said suddenly, out of the volcano, there was a huge, great big cliff came up. And present-day volcanologists think it could have been as much as 18 miles high. This